What if I told you the moment you stop chasing someone is often the moment they realize your true value? Welcome back to The Dating Mindset, where we uncover real relationship psychology and the hidden truths about love, attraction, and self-worth. Today, we're talking about why a man often recognizes your worth only after you create distance, and how self-respect and walking away can completely change love, connection, and respect in a relationship. Stay with me, because this will change the way you see love, self-worth, and personal value. Letting go is not weakness, but one of the strongest decisions a person can make. Many believe love means holding on tighter, trying harder, chasing longer, and never giving up no matter what. If you want the real truth about why men fall deepest for the woman who lets him go, hit like right now. From a mature man's perspective, the truth is very different. The woman he never forgets is not the one who held on through every pain, but the one who respected herself enough to walk away when she was no longer valued. She did not leave because she stopped caring about him, but because she cared too much about herself to keep losing who she was. She knew her worth, understood what she brought into the relationship every day, and realized real love should never require someone to abandon their identity just to keep the relationship alive. There is something deeply powerful about a woman who leaves with dignity and grace. No drama, no shouting, no begging, and no long emotional explanations. Just quiet confidence and self-respect that speak louder than words. That kind of exit stays with a man because he realizes he did not lose her to someone else or to circumstances, but to her own standards and boundaries. That kind of loss lingers in his mind, returns during quiet moments, follows him into the night when distractions disappear, and remains long after time has passed because it cannot be replaced easily. Because only then does he start to understand what she really was in his life all along. She was the person who supported him when others did not bother to stand by his side at all. The one who believed in him when he was not even believing in himself during tough periods. She saw potential in him even when he was not showing his best self to the world around him. And now that she is gone, that realization becomes heavier with every passing day and week. This is what actually happens inside a man's mind after the separation. When a woman walks away, it forces him to reflect deeply on the past events. He starts replaying everything that took place between them in his thoughts. The messages he ignored, the calls he did not return promptly, the plans he cancelled without much thought, the emotional effort he did not match on his end. It all comes back like a replay he cannot turn off, no matter how hard he tries to move on quickly. And what makes it even worse is the silence that follows her departure. Because silence from the right woman is powerful and meaningful. Sometimes it says more than arguments ever could in the heat of the moment. That quiet space carries a weight that words never had during their time together. But here is what many people miss completely in these situations. Walking away does not always mean love is gone forever from her heart. It can actually mean the opposite in many cases. It often means she still cares deeply, but she has finally started caring about herself more than before. She begins to realize that love should not feel like constant confusion, emotional exhaustion, or begging for basic consistency from the other side. At that point, walking away becomes a message without any spoken words at all. It says, I choose peace for my own well-being and growth ahead. I choose clarity in my daily life moving forward. I choose myself and my happiness first now. I deserve to be valued every single day, not only when it is convenient for the other person involved. Now, from the man's perspective, this moment hits differently than expected. Deep down, most men recognize when a woman is rare and special in her qualities. We see it clearly, but we do not always act like it matters in the busy moment of life. Comfort takes over our thoughts gradually over time. We assume she will stay no matter what happens around us. We assume she will understand our shortcomings without much effort. We assume she will keep tolerating less than she deserves for a longer period. But when she actually leaves with dignity, reality hits hard and fast. It is not just about missing her physical presence in daily routines. It is about realizing the value of what was taken for granted without appreciation during the relationship. Comment "walked away" if you've ever left and he suddenly realized your value. And no distraction replaces that deep feeling of loss inside. New people might come and go in his life without much impact, but the memory of the one who left with self-respect stays in the background of his mind for a long time. Because she did not leave in anger or bitterness at all. She did not leave in chaos or emotional storms either. She left in growth and personal development instead. And that growth is what makes her unforgettable in his eyes over the years. She did not fall apart after leaving the situation behind her. She evolved into a better version and moved forward with purpose. And seeing that transformation is what makes the impact even stronger on his thoughts. That version of her, the one who became better after walking away, becomes something a man cannot easily erase from his thoughts, no matter what. Because now, she is not just gone from his life. She is rising without him in her journey. And that creates a deeper kind of regret that lasts quietly, not loud or dramatic in nature, but quiet and lasting in its effect on him. When a woman leaves with clarity instead of raw emotion, it is not a reaction at all. It is a thoughtful decision made with care. And that kind of decision carries real strength and maturity. It shows self-control and self-respect at the highest level possible in tough times. And only when she is no longer there does a man finally see clearly what he had beside him all along in the relationship. So never believe that walking away is a sign of weakness in any way. It takes real strength to stop trying to fix something that keeps hurting you repeatedly. It takes courage to say, I care about you, but I care about myself more in this phase of life. That kind of woman does not lose anything valuable in the end. She moves forward with dignity and inner peace surrounding her. She carries herself with calm confidence every day. And the people who once underestimated her usually realize later that she was never someone easy to replace in their lives at all. And here is another truth you need to understand deeply about these dynamics. Sometimes distance is the only thing that wakes a man up from his comfort zone. You can give everything possible, including attention, loyalty, love, patience, support, and still not be fully seen or appreciated fully. Not because he does not feel anything real, but because he gets too comfortable in the relationship over time. He starts assuming you will always be there no matter the circumstances. That comfort becomes a form of blindness to your true value. But the moment you pull back your energy, everything shifts in his awareness suddenly. The absence creates a new sense of awareness in him. The silence creates space for reflection on past actions. Suddenly, he starts noticing what he ignored before without much thought. The small things you did without asking for recognition from him at all. Type self-respect if you're done chasing and ready to choose yourself. The emotional support you gave without being asked during his difficult times. The presence you brought into his life that he never fully appreciated in the daily flow. And ironically, your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was in the relationship. because now he feels the space you used to fill with care and effort. He notices the routines you were part of in his everyday life. He realizes how much you were actually holding together without making noise about it constantly. And once you stop chasing, stop explaining every detail, stop proving your value to him, that is when the real shift happens inside him. Because now you are no longer constantly available for his needs. Now he has to sit with his own thoughts and face what he contributed to losing you in the process. That space creates perspective for him to see things differently. And perspective changes everything in how he views the past connection. A man often needs contrast to understand true value in a partner. He has to experience your absence before he can truly understand your presence and contributions. Most will not admit it openly, but it is true in many cases. Because when you are always there, always giving, always available, without limits, it becomes easy to overlook you in the routine of life. But when you step back intentionally, everything becomes clearer in his mind. He does not just miss you on the surface level. He starts understanding you on a deeper level than before. And sometimes distance teaches a lesson that presence never could teach him effectively. And this is where that distance becomes even more powerful for both sides. It does not just give you your peace back in a meaningful way. It also gives him a reality check he did not see coming at all during the comfortable phase. Because while he is sitting in that discomfort of loss, you are no longer in that cycle of chasing and explaining. You are not stuck in the same emotional loop anymore after the decision. You are focused on yourself, your growth, your healing process, your goals, and your overall life path ahead. And that shift in energy, that quiet transformation you undergo, it speaks louder than anything you could ever say in words to him. And yes, he feels it across the silence and the distance created. Even across social media, if he checks, he can sense something has changed noticeably. Something about your energy is different and more positive now. You are not the same woman who was sitting and waiting anymore in the old pattern. And nothing unsettles a man more than watching a woman start to thrive in the very space he assumed she would always stay in without change. Let us be real about it in these situations. When a woman creates space for herself, she is actually doing something powerful and wise. She is giving a man a moment of clarity, a chance to wake up from complacency, a chance to reflect on his actions, a chance to step up and meet her where she is now becoming stronger. Some men take that chance seriously and make changes. They rise to the occasion with better efforts. They adjust their approach in the relationship. They show up differently with more presence and awareness. They become more intentional in their actions toward her. But even the ones who do not rise up fully, even the ones who let pride and ego keep them stuck in old ways, they still do not forget that moment of her walking away. They do not forget the shift in dynamics that occurred. They do not forget the silence that followed her decision clearly. They do not forget how everything changed the moment she chose herself instead of staying in the unfulfilling situation. Because that changes the dynamic forever between them in lasting ways. Comment distance if silence and space made him see what he lost. Distance is not always the ending of a story in relationships. Sometimes it is the beginning of true awareness for him. Sometimes it is the moment a man starts to see clearly for the first time in a long while. And often it is not about losing you permanently from his life. It is about realizing what it feels like to almost lose you completely in that period. Because when a man starts thinking about you in silence, without easy access, when there is no constant presence or comfort available, that is when understanding finally starts to form in his mind deeply. That is when he realizes you were never ordinary in his experiences. That is when it hits him that he took something meaningful for granted without full appreciation. And here is something even deeper to consider in modern connections. In a world full of situationships, mixed signals, late replies, and emotionally empty connections everywhere, there is one thing that leaves a lasting imprint on a man's heart more than anything else. It is not just beauty or physical attraction alone. It is not just shared memories from the past. It is not even the good times spent together. It is a woman's self-respect that stays with him. That is what remains in his thoughts strongly. A lot of women get caught in the idea that if they give more, love harder, forgive more often, stay more available, and tolerate more issues, it will eventually make a man stay committed long term. But the truth is very different from that common belief. What actually makes a man value a woman deeply is when he realizes she will not lose herself just to keep him in her life at any cost. That is self-respect in action, and it matters greatly. And when a man sees a woman who does not beg for attention, does not chase endlessly, does not lower her standards just to keep someone close, something shifts inside him in a profound way. Because she is no longer just another person in his life passing through. She becomes someone who understands her own worth too clearly to ignore it or compromise on it. Self-respect is not loud or attention-seeking in nature. It does not need to prove itself constantly to others. It does not argue or chase validation from anyone around. It simply exists in the way a woman carries herself with confidence, in how she chooses what she accepts in relationships, in how she refuses what drains her energy over time. And when a man witnesses that kind of energy from her, he remembers it for a long period, because she becomes the woman who did not just love him unconditionally. She also respected herself enough to walk away from what was not matching her value and standards. And that is not something a man forgets easily, no matter how much time passes. Here is something important to understand about men in these contexts. We do not always recognize value in the moment it is present. Sometimes we get comfortable in the routine. Sometimes we assume things will stay the same forever. Sometimes we mistake consistency for permanence without effort. We confuse availability with a guarantee of staying. But the moment that availability starts disappearing from the picture, everything changes noticeably in his perspective. Because now it is no longer guaranteed at all. Now there is space and uncertainty present. And in that uncertainty, realization begins to grow stronger inside him. Type yes if you believe a woman's strength is in walking away with dignity. That is when a man starts thinking, wait, I might actually lose her for good this time. And that thought changes everything in how he views the situation. Many women believe they have to do more to be valued properly by him. Love harder than before, explain more details, stay longer despite issues, prove their worth constantly. But what actually wakes a man up is not more effort from your side. It is absence and space created. It is distance that allows reflection. It is silence that forces him to think clearly. Because silence forces reflection on past behaviors deeply. Distance forces perspective on the whole relationship, and perspective forces truth to come forward eventually. And suddenly he starts noticing everything he ignored before without thought. The small efforts you made quietly, the emotional support you provided steadily, the consistency you showed in tough times, the care you offered freely, the presence you brought that once felt normal but now feels irreplaceable in his life. And when a woman reaches a point where she is no longer holding on out of fear alone, but standing in peace, ready to walk away if needed for her well-being, that is when everything changes in the dynamic positively. Because now she is not begging to be chosen by him desperately. She is allowing herself to be chosen properly and with respect. And that kind of energy does not chase after anyone. It attracts the right kind of attention and connection instead. In conclusion, what this all really comes down to is not games or manipulation tactics. It is not chasing endlessly or trying to force someone to see your worth artificially. Share this with a woman who needs to hear she's more powerful when she lets go. It comes down to genuine self-respect that guides your choices. Because the truth is, a woman is never more powerful than when she chooses herself fully. When she stops over-explaining her feelings, stops over-giving to someone who is not meeting her halfway in efforts, and stops trying to earn love that should already be freely given without conditions. That moment of walking away is not a loss in any sense. It is clarity and growth for her path. It is the moment she stops abandoning herself just to keep someone else comfortable in the old ways. And yes, distance changes things between people. It creates silence that allows deeper thoughts. And in that silence, reflection begins naturally for him. A man may only start to realize what he had when it is no longer easily available to him daily. Not because love was never there in the first place, but because comfort blinded his appreciation for a while. And once that clarity hits him strongly, he sees the value of what he took for granted in the relationship before. But even more important than his realization is hers in the journey. Because the real transformation is not about whether he comes back or whether he finally understands everything. The real transformation is the woman who no longer waits to be understood by others. If this hit you deep, comment rising if you're choosing yourself and thriving. She grows stronger every day. She heals from past hurts. She builds a life where her peace is not dependent on anyone's attention or approval. And that is the final truth that matters most here. The woman who walks away with self-respect does not lose love entirely. She gains herself back fully in the process. And once she has herself completely back in her control, she is no longer waiting to be chosen by someone who could not see her value clearly. She becomes someone who only accepts what matches her worth and standards now. And that is something no distance, no silence, and no time can ever take away from her. If this message resonated with you deeply, make sure you like this video for support. Subscribe to the Dating Mindset channel for more content and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more real insights like this one. And in the comments below, I want you to drop one word that captures it all: self-respect. If you truly understand the power of choosing yourself and valuing your worth every day,